can we put our own faction ships into the REBF wave defense system? Is a question I was asked. And yes, we can. The two main limitations are that the ship must be back to front printable, and it can't contain any DLC blocks because they will not build. So that's the short answer. In this video, I'll go through the long answer. I'll explain how the logic of the REBF factories works, how the ship logic works as well, which projectors to put them in and everything like that. So if someone wants to add themselves to this, as well as how to set up the user interface for it as well. So first we'll take a look at the ship itself. The factory's logic is modular. It operates entirely within itself. It builds the ship, and then using this hinge at the back, it then just throws the ship up into space. So the ship's logic works all by itself as well. On the front of our... I didn't have to set up before. So give me a moment. That was in the previous save. So what we can do is just get an event controller on the front. Event, block added removed. So when the ship printer builds this block, then it will trigger. And we want it to start a timer block, which will activate our ship. And let's go to the second toolbar there, and we also want it to turn itself off so it doesn't trigger multiple times. So we'll build this event block near the middle of our ship, and we'll have the timer block here that will activate the AI and the thrusters and the turrets and the antenna and everything else. So the production flow is put it into the projector. The printer builds the ship. When it builds the event block, it starts the timer, which should be set to about 2 or 3 minutes probably. And once the ship finishes building, the factory will throw the ship into space, and hopefully about 30 seconds after release, the timer will turn on, and the ship will then fly over and attack the command base where the player will be waiting to blow it up. In terms of the AI itself, it's only 3 blocks. It's a flight block with the usual settings, 100 meters per second. The defensive AI and the task AI. We'll take a look at the task AI first. Very straightforward. Follow home to the defense point. The defense point is the exact location of the shield generator. So that's where the base is. So don't set the minimum range too close. Like if you set the minimum range to 50, there's a good chance that it will just fly into the base itself, which is less than ideal. There's also the AFP Allied Militia Rally Point. This waypoint is about 500-600 meters in front of the base. So if you want your stuff to be a little bit more defensive, you can send them to that waypoint instead. And also we want to have Wander when idle on as well. I think we can reduce that to maybe 400. Oops, not 40, that's way too low. And finally, there's the defensive AI block as well, but I mean, those are pretty straightforward. The only thing I've done is when taking damage, go to the defense point or set it to go to militia rally point and keep the evasive maneuvers on so that at least it'll try to dodge enemy fire. Or you can make the weakened ships rotate to the back, or we can work some kind of statics like that. With the offensive AI block, I have not included it on any of the REBF ships. There seems to be a rare bug in the Space Engineer's core code that when an offensive AI block gets destroyed, there's a very, very, very small chance that the game will crash to desktop. I've had this happen to me like hundreds of times. I would say the chances of it happening are about 1 in 100. So it's not really like a huge deal for most gameplay. But the factories here produce about 300 drones in 1 hour. So because of that, it means if I put offensive AI on the ships, the game will probably reliably crash every 15-20 minutes. It's an experience that I have. I don't know if everyone else has that as well, but apparently I'm not the only one who's suffered that kind of bug. So that's why the ships only have this sort of makeshift AI pattern on them. And I believe that's everything with AI. Anything else to say? One thing is with the hinge has to lift the ship up, and then the timer will turn off the merge block to throw it. If the ship is too light, then this will come up, it will go to 90 degrees, it will bounce, and if it releases on the way down, then it will smash into the factory. So make sure the ship's not too light. If the ship is too heavy, then the hinge won't be able to lift it. So make sure to adjust the torque on the hinge so that it's suitable for the weight class of your ship. I think it's all the considerations with the AI. Next, I'll discuss the buildability of the ship. So the two restrictions: first, no DLC blocks and must be back to front printable. So we take a look at this one. You see, got our DLC blocks here. This is my original ship, so I have the cylinder block, got the industrial thrusters, the sci-fi thrusters, got some beam blocks and decorative desks and stuff. So I had to peel all of those off to make it printable. So now it ends up looking a bit more like this, no DLC. The second thing that has to change, it has to be back to front printable. What's meant by this is that because the welders are pulling from the back to the front, it means that some blocks will not be built if they only connect forwards. Just to make sure this is clear for anyone who's not familiar with it yet. As the building will start here and build, because these blocks are connected, these will build. This block down here, however, will not build because it's not connected on the top, bottom, left, or the right. It's only connected forwards. So as the welder drags back, it will not be able to build it because it can't build this block until it's built that one. Likewise, the same applies to this gyroscope. This is a problem that this is the most common mistake that I think I've made. Sometimes I'll build a ship and there'll be no gyroscopes in it because stupidly I made a lot of them backwards facing. So when the welder comes, it's the same situation as down there. When it's in buildable range of the welder, do another setup example. Give me a moment. So when the welder comes along, it gets to here and the gyro is in buildable range, but it can't build it because this block behind it cannot yet be built. And then when the welder goes back further, then the gyro, it will build this block behind it and the gyro will become buildable. However, again, it's now outside of the welder range, and the welder keeps moving backwards, so the gyro ends up never getting built. So the key thing that I need to remember when building these rear to front printable ships is that the gyroscopes have to be facing forwards or facing upwards. And we have to be very careful with antennas. If the antennas are backwards, that's not going to build. And same with, we're going to be careful with decorative elements on the back of the ship as well, so likewise that wouldn't build. It's also a very common thing with the wings. So these blocks here do not connect to the left, right, up, down, or backwards. So these would not build, even if they weren't DLC. So when you have wings that go back a bit, you kind of have to be a little bit cheeky and just add on a little sprue. So you can see these are directly connected to that rearmost block. So when the production flow goes, it builds along there, build this block, and then it can build sideways along here and including these tips. And it then can build the rest of this. On this, I have a DLC block, an inset light. And when we go and look at the finished product, we can see that the inset light did not build because the DLC is not buildable by the NPC factions. I think if a player joined this faction, then it would be buildable if you had the DLC. I think that's how it works, but I want as much automation as possible. Final consideration, I think, the middle of the welder wheel is one block below where the merge block is. So when you're placing your merge block, you could put that into consideration. Sometimes it can be tricky, like with my Hunter Corvette here, I've got a huge engine, and I want to have the center of the ship at the center of the wheel, so I put on a little dongle here so that it will build in the correct height. And this, of course, can just be detached by a timer later, or in my case, I'm lazy, so I just let the thruster burn it off, and the problem solves itself. And I believe that's it for all of the buildability issues. And next is the actual logic for the factory itself. So as you can see on our end here, we have 4 projectors. Blue is projector number 1, yellow is number 2, green is number 3, red is number 4. This is color coded with the logic inside the factory. So when the player pushes the button in the command base, it sends the signal 11, which activates here, which turns on this timer. When the production logic runs, it activates all of these timer blocks, which all activate the projectors. However, only one of the timer blocks will be on. So when this one is on, only the blue projector will build. When this one is on, only the yellow projector will build. When this one is on, only the green projector will build. So channel 11, it's set to only build that. Channel 13, it's set to only build the green projector, and so forth. We don't have to change any of the logic in here whatsoever. The only thing we do have to change, just as a little bit of user experience, is that when they send signal 11 to set the first blueprint to build, the broadcaster sends a message saying, "This is Medium Factory 1. We are now building the first ship in the blue projector, patrol gunboat." So you're going to want to change this to building X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Starship Enterprise, whatever you want it to be. And message 2 sends a message for the yellow, message 3 for the green, message 4 for the red projector, and so forth. So you need to change those to your ship names so the player knows what's getting built. Then the other thing is, in the AFP base itself, there are, of course, the control panels, which tell the player which ship will be built when they press which button. So we've got the controls for Medium Factory 1. And so they choose the stuff here, and these sends the 11, 12, 13, 14 signals when pressed. And of course you can see the writing there, set factory to patrol gunboat. So you'll need to change that to the name of your ship, to Star Destroyer or Borg Cube or whatever you want it to be. And there's also a small info screen here which gives very, very brief description of the ships that can be built. So maybe you'll want to update that as well. In terms of changing multiple factories, the first factory is controlled by signals from the 10s range. So 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18. Factory 2 is controlled by the 20s range. So this is 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 28. Factory 3, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and so forth. The allied factories are controlled by the 90s. So 91, 92, 93, 94. And the fighter factories are controlled by the zeros. With the, let's go find the allied factory. A bit faster. With the allied factory, the fastest way, if you want to have your ships be built as allies, the ships here go to the defense. Ships that are built here go to the AFP militia waypoint. So you need to change that in the blueprints when you put them in here. But the only other major change other than the color is that the signals here receive the 91 command. So to save as much time as possible, probably the best way to do it would be to find command, start by copying the RBF factory over there and paste it over here, and then find the action relays and change them all from the 90s down to the 10s. So if you're looking at your newly copy-pasted factory and it says OCH18, start building loop endlessly, then you'll want to change that 18 signal into a 98. If you find an action relay which is 14, you change it to 94. If you find an action relay which is 15, you change it to 95, and so forth. So basically you copy paste the factory here and then change all the action relays so that they use the allied 90 digits. And that's pretty much it, I think. Currently only the large grid builders are suitable for putting in multiple different kinds. The small grid fighter factories aren't really adaptable enough because if the ship is very tall on the wings, then the welder won't reach the middle. Sometimes you have to change the speed at which it goes up and down. Sometimes you got to change the speed for extending it out. The AFP militia fighters here take 2 minutes to build. The RBF ones take 1 minute. So this goes at half the speed. So this has to be customized a lot more. It's not really like a one mold suits all kind of thing. I've almost finished a small grid version of this. I was thinking instead of having 8 factories producing 8 fighters, I could just get one factory and just build a long line of 8 fighters all stacked together with merge blocks, and then they can all launch up and then split up. I've got that working already, but it still needs some finishing touches before I put it into the actual game. So maybe that'll open up some options later. Hopefully later on the offensive AI block stabilizes. That'll also open up some more design options. But as things are at the moment, those are the limitations for what can be put into the REBF and into the wave defense system. And that's pretty much it, I think. Not much else to say. I think I've covered everything. My voice is going a little bit. Yeah, that's everything. So thank you for watching. And if you have any comments or questions, then please do ask. Thank you very much.